Welcome to Facts TV News, where everything is true. 15 more years, additional time proposed for cell phone use behind bars. 15 more years, this is the additional time incarcerated persons could face behind bars if they are caught with a cellular phone if a bill that is before Parliament is passed into law. National Security Minister Dr. Horace Strong on Tuesday opened the debate on the Corrections Amendment Act 2021, which, among other things, seek to take away the devices that are being used by a number of high-profile prisoners to direct criminal enterprise from behind bars. Through the use of cellular phones and electronic communication devices, incarcerated violent producers are better able to directly or indirectly influence criminal gangs and drug activities. Some of these violent producers are leaders of top-tier members of gangs who give orders and perpetrate gang feuds and contract killings, and on occasions may pervert the course of justice, as witnesses are threatened, injured or murdered, said Trang during his contribution to the debate. The use of contraband items by prisoners has been widespread, with 5,431 illicit phones seized in the nation's prisons between 2016 and 2017 and 2019 and 2020, Chang said to the House. The Security Minister said the severity of offences and the explosion of criminal activities that are facilitated by the use of computer and electronic communication devices such as cellular phones behind bars meant that there is need for severe penalties. Anyone inside a correctional institution who knows that they will spend another 20 years behind bars will have second thoughts about using a cellular phone inside the facility, he noted. According to the bill, persons convicted in the parish courts may be fined up to $3 million or be imprisoned for 3 years, while a second or subsequent offender will attract a fine of $5 million or up to 5 years imprisonment. For those convicted in the circuit court, the term of imprisonment is a maximum 7 years for a first offense and 15 years for a second or subsequent offense. In her contribution to the debate, Attorney General Mallory Ford said there is an abundance of evidence that prisoners have been using cell phones to communicate with their cronies on the outside and are the masterminds behind a lot of criminal activities. If you use the cell phone or any other form of electronic device and you send instruction out a road and cause things to happen, you know you're going to be punished. And when you are found guilty, the prison time is going to start to run after you finish the existing prison time, she noted. JCF assures of adequate security for Christmas. The Jamaica Constabulary Force JCF says adequate security personnel will be deployed to ensure the safety and security of citizens during the busy Christmas period. Head of the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch, Assistant Commissioner of Police ACP, Gary Mackenzie, said members of the JCF will be out in their numbers to enforce the Disaster Risk Management Act and maintain public order as Jamaicans get ready to celebrate this season. In our plans and activities as police officers, we generally put more persons on the roadways, and we may ask of our officers who do administrative work to be out on the streets to complement the police officers who are already on operational activities, he noted. ACP Mackenzie said that non-geographical personnel, meaning those who do not operate in divisions, are also engaged at this time of the year to shore up the number of boots on the ground. For example, when we look at narcotics, the Criminal Investigation Branch, they are engaged and there's an extra effort to have police officers out there on duty, he noted. ACP Mackenzie said the JCF anticipate heightened security concerns at banks and other commercial areas where there's an increased exchange of cash, goods and services, and will ensure that the areas are saturated with police personnel. Measures are also in place to address the expected increase in vehicular traffic on the roadways, which can lead to accidents. What we do is to ensure that there is more presence from traffic officers, from the highway patrol, and we do a lot of speed check. We know that it is a happy season and persons tend to drink a little more, and so our breathalyzer enforcement activities are also heightened. We enforce this by ensuring that we are occupying our main and arterial roads, and we carry out our breathalyzer checks, ACP Mackenzie reported. He is encouraging persons to adhere to COVID-19 protocols. We know that we are operating within the ambit of a pandemic, and the issue of protecting ourselves is also important as we enforce the DRMA. We are appealing to persons as they move around to keep your distance of 6 feet and wear your mask, he urged. Ministry aiming to ramp up HPV vax drive after COVID disruption.
We order vaccines way ahead of when we're supposed to finish, and we always keep a buffer, so that we don't run out. So when you see we run out or we run dangerously low, usually something has happened with the supply chain that would have caused that.
Damon, what was the cause of the infant vaccine shortage earlier this year, and what steps are being taken to prevent a recurrence?
So for the infant vaccine, so we had a shortage, I believe, of the OPV vaccine and the BCG vaccine. So we would have gotten those in country now for several weeks, and so we are back on target to try to get anybody that would have missed to try it. And we would have put other measures in place in terms of utilizing the IPV instead of the OPV in a schedule that is approved to get persons vaccinated. It is sometimes challenging in terms of the arrival of the vaccines. We had an issue where we had a set of vaccines that arrived, but on inspection, there was an issue in terms of the cold chain. And so we had to discard some of those vaccines, and then it was a matter of trying to get the replacement quick enough. So there may have been other issues that I'm not remembering right now, but we order vaccines way ahead of when we're supposed to finish, and we always keep a buffer, so that we don't run out. So when you see we run out or we run dangerously low, usually something has happened with the supply chain that would have caused that. But we make every effort to ensure that we have the vaccines here.
How has the administration of the HPV vaccine been progressing, given the COVID-19 impact?
Well, because of the kids being out of school, this has impacted quite a bit on the delivery of the HPV vaccine. So I can say that we have fallen off quite a bit. What we are looking at now in terms of catching up is looking at an expansion of the delivery schedule in terms of moving to have older persons access the vaccine with a different dosing regimen. So we're trying to make up for that, and in time the public will be advised as to how it is.
Vaccine-only approach not enough for COVID fourth wave.
Part of the reason why some people are hesitant is because they see this vaccine-only narrative. When you're talking about non-communicable diseases, for example, hypertension and diabetes, we talk about a holistic approach. We talk about diet, we talk about exercise, we talk about stress management, we talk about the environment. There is nothing about that coming from authorities, not just locally, but even international. There's a push by the authorities to get vaccinated and to wear the mask and the public health stuff. We know this. But when you look at countries, for example, like Gibraltar, where 100% of the adults are vaccinated and they still have a problem, or Israel, that is significantly vaccinated and we still have spread, we're going to need more than the vaccines. And you're talking about the hesitancy. Part of the reason why some people are hesitant is because they see this vaccine-only narrative. When you're talking about non-communicable diseases, for example, hypertension and diabetes, we talk about a holistic approach. We talk about diet, we talk about exercise, we talk about stress management, we talk about the environment. There is nothing about that coming from authorities, not just locally, but even internationally. And there's research to back this up. So for example, there was a study in South Korea, 200,000 people showing that people who exercise regularly, when they do get COVID, their morbidity tends to be much less. Another one from 40,000, Kaiser Permanente Clinic in San Diego, 40,000 people. If you have a sedentary lifestyle, your risk of getting very sick, very high. There are multiple studies showing that if you're obese or overweight, your risk of severe morbidity is way higher, even if you're a young person. Multiple studies have shown that if you're vitamin D deficient, your risk of severe morbidity is high. So what we need is to let people know, yes, get vaccinated, because vaccination makes a huge difference. 70% of Jamaica is fully vaccinated.
But
Only 2% of the people who died from COVID were fully vaccinated. It's a huge difference. The data speaks for itself. So getting vaccinated reduces your risk of severe morbidity and death, but we need more than that. We need to take responsibility for our own health. We need to educate people about early treatment. That's another thing. There's this kind of binary thinking that some people think you're either for the vaccine or you're for early treatment. I'm a physician. I support vaccination strongly, but I also support early treatment. And there's a gap in management where when people are diagnosed with COVID and they are told, guess what? You have some sinus problems and your test came back positive, so stay home for 2 weeks and just let me know if you get worse. We need to let people know what they can take to affect their immune system or viral replication or inflammation, whatever, and let them know that you need to be in contact with a physician on a daily basis. You need to monitor your oxygen level.
Yes.
We need to let people know this because many people who die, they die because they reach hospital late.
Yes.
They're at home for a while. So we need a multi-pronged approach. It has to be a multi-pronged approach.
Very well. Dr. Bisesa McKenzie, we're heading into the fourth wave. Exactly how are you preparing?
Well, in terms of the fourth wave, what we have to make sure is that, first of all, we are imploring people to get vaccinated to protect especially the vulnerable population. The public health measures in terms of the wearing of the mask, physical distancing, hand sanitizing, all of those are still there, so we encourage persons to do that. We also are preparing in terms of our hospitals to make sure that we have all the supplies that are needed.
Oxygen included?
Oxygen included in terms of our main suppliers having that capacity to increase the amount of supplement their local production. So that is being done to make sure that we are prepared. But I do agree with Michael in terms of the other measures that people need to do to stay healthy, to make sure that they're taking care of any of their chronic diseases that they have, because we know that chronic diseases put you at an extra risk for severe COVID-19. So I would encourage persons to do that, and I would also encourage persons to eat healthy and exercise, and to encourage the physicians out there to encourage patients to do that.
But all in all, you're satisfied that you are prepared for a fourth wave?
Well, we can never be. We're doing what is necessary, but we can never be totally prepared, but we're certainly moving towards that. I don't think I can ever be comfortable because there's so much that is unknown. And when you have a new variant that is there that we're not sure exactly how it is in terms of transmissibility, certainly what we're seeing is that it appears to be highly transmissible. So we know that if it does come to Jamaica, and I shouldn't even say if, I should say when, that several persons will be affected. What I am hoping is that there will be, because of the level of vaccination, because of the level of precautions that people are taking, is that the picture will be a little bit different, because even if it is that this new variant has the same exact profile in terms of disease that it can cause, because many of our vulnerable populations would have been protected, many people are sensitized to the measures to be taken, then maybe it is that we won't have the level of hospitalization.
All right.
From the NHS perspective, the additional burden was to source and procure vaccines. And the early days were difficult, but I think the lesson that we have picked up at the NHF, and that I think the people of Jamaica should hear and digest, is that going forward, public health must become more significant and important in not only the government's policy making, but in the lives of ordinary people. We need to be much more focused on the care of ourselves, because, for instance, COVID is really a disease of the unhealthy. If you are healthy, your likelihood, vaccinated or not, your likelihood of dying from COVID is much less. And I think public health must become a more significant foundation stone in planning and in strategic implementation of government policy.
Chamber of Commerce puts fire to tobacco bill. The Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, JCC, says that the new tobacco control bill will create significant challenges for some commercial businesses. According to the Chamber's CEO Larry Watson, the bill appears to be written to deal with companies and people who sell only tobacco products. But he reminded the Joint Selected Committee considering severe restrictions on tobacco sale to meet World Health Organization standards that some companies handling other product lines as well as tobacco. There are companies which handle multiple product lines, including tobacco products, and we are of the opinion that the bill as written will create significant challenges for these companies, he said in a JCC submission to the committee on December 1. To put it in another way, one may find that you have a distribution company and only 5 or 10% of your sales may be in tobacco productions, and therefore, some of the compositions of the bill that is targeted specifically to the company and or person who would create challenges, he said. Watson explained that if somebody is selling tobacco, along with food or pharmaceuticals or personal care items, the restrictions on the tobacco product would have an effect on the others. He said that Section 24 of the bill, containing the fourth schedule, would disrupt the relationship between key business partners by prohibiting gifts and offering of discounted products, retail incentives, and the offering of financial support to venue operations. He also noted that Clause 9.3 of the bill prohibits investment in tobacco and related industries, which could be unconstitutional. The Charter of Rights stipulated that for the same to be done, it must be demonstrably justified in a free, democratic society, he said, arguing that the clause can be interpreted to mean that civil servants would be barred for investing in some of Jamaica's leading manufacturing and distribution companies if these companies are selling tobacco products. Watson's reference was to a provision barring public servants from investing in tobacco industry and prohibiting them from operating a tobacco manufacturing wholesale, retail, or import business. It would also prevent public servants from holding shares in companies like Caracas and defines public body as a ministry or department of government, including a statutory body or authority, a government company, or an executive agency. This has led to questions being raised by the constitutionality of Section 13 of the Act, which some lawyers argue is discriminatory under the Jamaica Constitution. Watson also pointed out that Clause 19 of the bill prohibits the sale of tobacco in public places, when the definition of public places in the interpretation section of the bill notes that it is any structure, facility, place of assembly, or other place available to be used collectively by the public, including government offices and space or a building of any type, regardless of the ownership of or the right or access to any such place, office space, or building. He said that the inclusion of public place will prohibit the sale of tobacco and related products from all stores, shops, supermarkets, and bars, among other places. This bill establishes strict guidelines on which entities are technically prohibited for selling tobacco products and have other ought to operate, he noted. Watson also criticized Clause 4 of the bill, which reserves for the Ministry of Health the right to regulate design features, labeling, packaging, seal, distribution, and advertising control, as well as testing methods and standards, and the prohibition of ingredients. We are of the considered view that the power of the minister, as outlined in the Act, is outside of the minister's remit, he said. Some regulatory measures should be performed by ministerial flats but ought to be mandated by the Parliament, as the Constitution dictates that the passing of laws is the prerogative of Parliament and not a minister, he said. He urged the committee to consider the possibility that one day Jamaica could have a Minister of Health that is pro-tobacco, as the consequences could be far-reaching. The committee will resume in January, when it will go to the final stage of the process to complete a report to both houses of Parliament for approval to become legislation early in 2022. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and click the notification bell for daily updates.